Well, as Africa braces for a surge in coronavirus cases, President Trump is vowing to help the continent tackle the pandemic. Politico says that the Trump administration has offered ventilators to African countries grappling with the virus. The White House has also pledged some $270 million in foreign aid to at-risk nations in Africa as it moves to boost U.S. influence across the continent while countering China's dominance. So Meridith McGraw is the White House reporter for Politico. Meridith, you wrote a really interesting article about this. What is going on here? Because this is the America First president. This is the president that wanted to pull back aid, that talked about countries in Africa as S-hole countries. Why is he so interested now in helping African nations?
Well, the U.S. has always played an important role on the continent, just in terms of development and outreach, both with the U.S. government, but also with just the extensive network of U.S. Development and foundations that really do a lot of important work on the continent. But as tensions between the U.S. and China are on the rise, and of course, as Africa and African nations, they're grappling with how to handle this pandemic, the U.S. really sees an opportunity here to be to counter China, especially as China has really tried to be aggressive in their public relations in the aftermath of the coronavirus by bringing aid to the continent and trying to help. And the U.S. wants to show that that they have the winning narrative, really, and that these nations should side with the U.S. And that they'll be there to help.
So what is the message exactly that the Trump administration is trying to send to China with this move?
Well, the U.S. is trying to say that, we've always been a strong ally. The U.S. was, of course, a major player in combating Ebola, combating AIDS on the continent, and continues to, have a lot of money and resources on the continent to help, but they're warning they're warning these African nations in a way, with China continuing to have influence there, and that with China there might be certain strings attached to the development aid that comes in, and they recognize that, China is trying to win influence there.
But China has been, attempting to win influence for a while now. They've invested probably billions of dollars on the continent in infrastructure and other ways of assisting countries. Is there an opening for the U.S.?
The U.S., in addition to, wanting to show African nations that they're a strong ally in terms of aid, they are also trying to show that with China, there could be strings attached. China is one of the biggest debt holders, is the biggest debt holder for African nations. And a State Department official told me that in the wake of the coronavirus, the way China has been, it's like they've set fire to the village, and then they're coming in and trying to get credit for throwing some water to help put out those fires there. So they really just want to make sure that they don't lose any footing there. And then there are also national security implications on the continent as well. Chinese President Xi Jinping, he's made visits there. He's tried to make a lot of diplomatic inroads. It was really interesting at the World Health Organization when he spoke. Africa was a huge part of his talking points, and they've really tried to be out there front and center when it comes to building those relationships.
It just appears that it's going to be really difficult, even if the U.S. is making some of these moves now, Meridith. China, as we've been pointing out, has a strong foothold there, and there may be some backlash now, but they've been there for many, many, many years, and the U.S. has slowly, ever since the Bush administration, slowly not receding from Africa, but not making it a priority, and certainly in the last 3 years, it has not been a priority. And so I just wonder, even in the last couple of months before a U.S. election, if that's going to have any real significant effect. I mean, I was based in Africa for several years. They build roads, they build buildings there. They provide a lot. And yes, there are strings attached, but a lot of African countries have said that they're okay with that.
That's right. And, Africa really has not been a priority for this president, as you said. And it really wasn't until recently that we saw the biggest flurry of activity with President Trump. He made a series of phone calls, but he's had the least number of visits by African leaders to the White House and the least number of interactions, I was told by an expert, since President Eisenhower. And it really has not been until the last few months with dealing with the coronavirus that we've seen this this uptick in activity from him. And it remains to be seen how much this will continue, but it has been a priority of late for the State Department. And as tensions between U.S. and China continue to build, we know Secretary of State Pompeo, there are plans for him to meet with China soon. This could be another sort of battlefield in this kind of proxy war, I guess, between the U.S. and China.
Really interesting. Meridith, thank you very much. Really great reporting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.